Guess what day it is? Today is profit allocation day. And today I'm going to have story time with you. This is profit first story time. So every Monday is profit allocation day, where I take a report where I look at my revenue and then I distribute money to my profit and my tax accounts. Super simple, takes 15 minutes. I just sort through my expenses in QuickBooks, then pop money into those two accounts. That's all I do. And I do that every Monday and have successful, profitable number with money in the bank and a lot of security from doing this over and over again, because profit is not an event, it's a habit. So I do that every Monday. Today is story time because today I don't have any money to allocate. So whether you're dealing with a situation where someone hasn't paid their bills, maybe multiple people haven't paid their bills, or you just have a billing cycle that doesn't work every week, there's always something that you can do with Profit First. And the story time comes from when I started out Profit First, because sometimes people get into Profit First and then they think, this sounds great, but I can't do it. And the reason I know that sometimes people think that is because that is what I thought. I read the book and I thought that Michalowicz was a voyeur and he was watching my life and then he wrote a story about it. That's how I felt with Profit First. So I felt it emotionally, the pain that he was talking about, entrepreneurs feeling, trying to keep their business going with this cash eating, very hungry monster that always demanded payment, daily, weekly, monthly, and always sort of this scramble to figure out, well, I'll pull money from over here and put it here for now. That'll keep off this creditor, or this person will keep working for me if I pay them, this amount right now. So there's this constant shuffle of money. And I was below the $500,000 mark at the time. And I think that Profit First is fabulous for a marketing agency that's at that level. But I also think that it works for larger agencies. And the reason I know that larger agencies still struggle with this is because I was having conversations with a $10 million and a $50 million marketing agency. And one of them told me at that time, I don't know if I can make payroll next week. So I know that this is a situation, but I was scrambling. I was doing the money scramble, moving things from here and there and trying to prioritize who needed money most from me without my business failing or to keep the business running. And so I read Profit First and it gave me hope. However, I felt like it was not doable, because I thought even if I take 1% of my revenue and I start putting it in a profit account, and especially the way Mike has it laid out, where you open a bank that is not near you, across the bridge, where however you're doing it, it's difficult to access. You put the money in that account. I knew I would be driving across the bridge, like no matter how long it took to get there, to get that money out of there the very next day, because I had people, I was just doing that money shuffle. So I know that sometimes people either read Profit First, if you're a marketing agency, you read Profit First, or a marketing consultant or a freelancer, you read Profit First and you think, that is my story. And I do want to make it better like Mike made his story better, because that's what I was thinking. But I don't know how. And I think it's not like Mike didn't say where the first place to start was, but it was difficult to hear because I was in survival mode. And I was like, I can only hear that there might be hope, but I still feel despair in my heart, because I still, tomorrow is payday, or and the money's not there, or in 2 days this big amount is going to be due and the money is not there. So the first thing once I got someone outside of my own head telling me, okay, here's what you do the first thing with Profit First. And I had to do that because in survival mode, I was so laser focused on the problem that I could not see anything else. And that's what we do in survival mode. We get so focused on the difficulty, the problem, that's really hard to see our way out of the situation. So I had read the book. I said I wanted to follow the book. I got outside information in, and the first place where we needed to start was trimming expenses. And the reason I'm going through this story time today is because on weeks where I don't have money to put in a profit allocation account, or money to allocate to profit and taxes, that is when I challenge myself. And because this is a habit and this allocation day happens every week. And honestly, the weeks where I don't have an allocation to put into the account are few and far between anymore. They used to be a lot more. But on those weeks, I decided that's a week I'm going to cancel one subscription. I'm going to trim away an expense because that is the place to start. And next week, we'll talk about my next objection to Profit First whenever I first got started. But my first objection was I can't move the money. So we have to start looking at expenses and trimming those down, finding a way to trim those out. And still I was struggling to put money in the profit and tax accounts. So we'll talk about what that means next week. But the first step was trimming an expense. So on this profit allocation day, when there's nothing to allocate, I'm going to go in and I'm going to find one subscription to cancel. And you might be thinking, I run a lean, mean marketing machine, so I don't have anything. I don't have any expenses to cancel. And it can be difficult, especially if you have multiple profit allocation weeks and you're looking for a subscription to cancel or an expense to take out. It can start to get really difficult where you're like, I have to have this thing. This is where Mark Michalowicz. This is where Mike Michalowicz's body of work comes into play, because the pumpkin plan is, and I had an interview with Donna Lyons a little bit ago, which I will link in the description below, about one of the first things I did whenever I was working through the pumpkin plan, which is Mike's book on strategy, which I think his body of work, you just have to use it all together because he's got a well-rounded, this is how you build an entrepreneurial business. So we've got to put all these things together. Profit First came first for me because I was hurting so bad with finances, but Profit First actually didn't work that well until I went through the pumpkin plan. And next week I'll talk about how clockwork comes into play. But the pumpkin plan, what that did for me was help me realize that there were clients I didn't need to be working with, and that there were actually services that I was offering that I did not need to be offering. So I opened my business and I thought I needed to be a full marketing agency, which meant I needed to provide all the services that a marketing agency would provide. And literally I had me, one other full-time employee, and then a smattering of subcontractors that were working with me. And we were supposed to fulfill all the things. And that's kind of ridiculous, because if you think of a full marketing agency, it's like social media and ads and websites and SEO and messaging, email campaigns and digital marketing, like having that full plan and putting it across all the platforms. Press releases, PR is associated with that. Communication, sometimes internal communication. So, and I had been the EVP of a marketing company before, so I knew all of these pieces that I needed to provide. And I did not have a way to put them all together that felt right to me. So what the pumpkin plan did for me was help me realize that, first of all, I hated doing social media. I really hated it. And that it needed a lot of extra tools. So I stopped providing that service and my expenses went way down. And for some of you, it's a client that is a high cringe factor client. If you read the pumpkin plan, excuse me, my throat sounds all. If you read the pumpkin plan, it talks about cringe-worthy clients. And part of that cringe-worthy client is someone that you've charged an amount and they use up all of your time because you're doing so many revisions or whatever it is that you are working with them, or they're calling you all the time and they're eating up your time. They're like time vampires. And also maybe it doesn't feel so great. And they're probably paying you the least amount of money, but sometimes it does. I mean, sometimes some of the higher ticket items, but it's rare. It's more the people that don't pay that much that will suck the life out of you. And so once you realize that you're actually paying them to do work for them, you can get them off your books, and that's an expense you've eliminated. But some of the subscriptions, so like when we decided to not do social media anymore, we could let go of Sprout as an example. That was a big software that we used that was costing thousands of dollars a year. And it would push everything out to all the social media platforms and the right frames and all that jazz. But we didn't need it. We had 2 social media customers, and it wasn't a lot of money that we were pulling in from that. We were having this big expense. So we canceled that service, and that helped us cancel an expense. But even if you don't go through the work to cancel a client or cancel, and this is my version of cancel culture. I will cancel clients if they're cringe-worthy. I will cancel subscriptions if they don't make sense anymore. But even if or services, if I don't want to do them. But even if you're not canceling clients or services, I promise there are some expenses that you've just kind of allowed to pop into your account. And the reason is because you like to try a new thing. And for a period of time, maybe it works for you. So there's something that I used to use called co-schedule, and it would help me formulate titles for blog posts. And it goes through a particular formula. It's always helpful. It always helps me get a title a little bit better. But now I know the formula intuitively, and mostly I'm writing 80 and 90 point scoring headlines. So I don't need to pay for that service anymore. The algorithm has become part of my brain for how to write the best title. Now, might I go back to it at some point if things start to change in the SEO world and there's a better way to write titles? Yeah, sure, because it is a very good tool to use. I love that tool, but I don't need it anymore. There's AI copywriting software I've purchased before that, quite frankly, I don't feel like robots are ever taking over the world, because our little minds are just so much more complex and better at filling in the gaps. But it is a good help to get you started in the right direction. And on some projects, it was a lifesaver, but not for, $1,200 a year, maybe more, for the once in a while that it really helps out. And so those are the kinds of subscriptions or bills that I just go in and cancel. Like, I don't use that thing anymore. So I'm going to let that go. And on days where I have profit allocations and I don't, there's no money to allocate, and that day is today, then I'm going to find a subscription that I'm going to cancel. And the reason I talked about co-schedule is that's the one that's going out the door today. It was very helpful in the past. It may be helpful again, but today I'm going to let it go. So that's today's story time and allocation time. We are letting go of an expense because we don't have anything to allocate, and I still like to use my profit first allocation days to do something related to my profit habits. We're gonna cancel an expense today and keep our profit habit up on our profit allocation day. All right, that's it for today. Go cancel the subscription. Start your own cancel culture because it will help your profits grow. Talk to you later. Bye.